Welcome to Best Disc Golf Discs video guide series. My name is Bart Bird, and in this episode we'll be covering how to choose the best discs for cold days. The topics we'll be covering today will include the impact of cold weather on both the flight of your discs and the discs themselves, as well as a specific action plan to help you optimize your performance in the winter. So let's get started. The most often reported winter impacts are a reduced flight distance of the discs, as well as more overstable flight patterns from the disc. For example, if you have a disc that in the summer gives you a relatively balanced flight pattern, in the winter you can often expect it to give you a shorter flight distance as well as a more overstable flight pattern. Additionally, in the winter, players often report that they have reduced grip on their disc and that the discs crack and become more likely to break. So let's talk a little bit about the causes of each of these things and specific adjustments you can make. Before we get into the direct effects of winter, however, I think it's important to talk about winter prep, because the reality is that the bulky clothing, the cold muscles, and the slippery footing in winter can often in and of themselves lead to a lower release velocity, which will, of course, reduce your distance and lead to more overstable flights, which can further accentuate your loss of distance. So anytime you're playing in the winter, please ensure you're properly warmed up and wearing the right gear. In winter play, players are dealing with two specific factors, the first of which is cold air, and the second of which is a cold disc. An important and often misunderstood fact about cold air is that cold, dry air is actually more dense than warm, humid air. As a specific example, on a warm, humid day of 90 degrees Fahrenheit with 80% relative humidity, that same course in the wintertime on a day where it's only 30 degrees Fahrenheit with 40% relative humidity, all other factors being the same, the air on the cold, dry day will be 12% more dense than it was on the warm, humid day. When discussing dense air and its effects on the disc's aerodynamics, people often reference the fact that it's going to increase the amount of drag on the disc. And this is accurate, but what people often overlook is that the density amplifies all aerodynamic aspects, meaning that it also increases the amount of lift generated on the disc, which should actually prolong the disc's flight. And it will also increase the impact of turbulent air coming across the top of the disc, which can make the disc fly in a more understable pattern. In reality, the net effect of these three different and often conflicting impacts is very hard to calculate and may vary significantly from disc to disc. For this reason, our specific focus today will be more heavily placed on the cold plastic. The first fact of cold plastic is that it has a reduced coefficient of friction, meaning that it has less grip when it's cold than it did when it's warm. This has the relatively simple fix of beginning with a high grip plastic, and doing so as the disc loses grip when it's cold. Starting at a very high grip point will ensure that you still have sufficient grip as the disc cools. The second factor of cold plastic is that it gets more stiff and brittle, which can make it feel almost like you're attempting to throw a ceramic dinner plate, and also making it so brittle that it'll crack like one. The third and maybe least discussed factor is that it shrinks, and the trick with these last two components is that they both vary significantly based on the type of plastic used. For example, polypropylene becomes extremely brittle at the relatively high temperature of 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And certain types of polyethylene can actually experience enough shrinkage when cold to result in a 3% reduction in lift, which will definitely be noticed over the course of a 300-foot flight. With all this variability, the question immediately becomes, how do I know which plastic to use? For obvious reasons, disc manufacturers keep their plastic blend formulas as closely guarded secrets. To help you manage through this, however, we've combined our research with specific input from disc manufacturers to give us a list of the best specific plastics by manufacturer for play in the wintertime. And we've put this complete and detailed listing on our website for your reference. As a specific example, Innova Brand Discs recommends their G-Star plastic for winter play, driven by its high grip and its ability to stay flexible, even in very cold temperatures. Putting everything together into one plan, the first step is to use high grip plastic. The second step is to possibly slightly decrease the stability of the discs you're using to help overcome any overstable patterns you're seeing in the winter. The third step is to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. This won't actually help your game, but we would really appreciate it if you did so. The fourth step is to visit our website for the complete listing of plastics by brand recommended for winter play. And the fifth step is to let us know your experience in the comments section below. We'd love to hear any specific experiences you have with discs and plastics that you feel are very successful in wintertime play. So we hope this helps. Our plastics guide also contains links to many of the studies referenced in this guide, and here are some related videos that go more in depth on these topics. Until next time, thank you very much for watching and have a great round.